Okay, so this question says, Paul has 117 quarters and dimes. I just didn't feel like writing it out. Altogether, his quarters and dimes are worth $15.75. So we know the total value of the coins. We don't know how many quarters and how many dimes, right? That's what we need to figure out. So we need to come up with two equations. I've already put variables here because I was too lazy to write. So we're going to let Q represent quarters, and we'll let dimes represent, let D represent dimes. What's the first equation? We know that altogether he has 117 coins. We don't know the number of quarters. We don't know the number of dimes. What could be an equation you could come up with to represent the total number of coins? Good. So we're going to let Q represent the number of quarters. So I have a certain number of quarters. That's what we're trying to find out, right? And a certain number of dimes. Altogether, we have 117 coins. Maybe he has 5 quarters and 10 dimes. That's obviously not the answer, but we need to figure out how many. How much does a quarter cost? How much is a quarter worth? Okay, so if I had 4 quarters, how much money do I have? $1. So to figure out the total, you would take the value of the quarter, which is 25 cents, and multiply it by the number of quarters, right? If I want to know how much are 4 quarters worth, you take 25 cents and you multiply it by 4 to get $1. Plus, we have dimes. How much is a dime worth? So we take the number of dimes and multiply it by their value. And altogether, how much money does he have? $15.75. So these are the two equations we're working with. Study this for your exam. Substitution or elimination method. Okay. I'm going to choose substitution because it's easier to isolate a variable in this question, and then I can just substitute it into the other equation. You have the two equations. Okay, we already came up with the two equations. We want to choose one equation to isolate a variable. Which equation would be easier to isolate a variable, 1 or 2? 1, because the variables don't have coefficients in front of them. It's less steps to isolate equation 1. Okay, so I'm choosing equation 1. Yep. Hold on. Q plus D equals 117. All we're doing is isolating a variable. So do you want to isolate Q or D? It doesn't really matter. D? Okay. So we have to figure out what is D equal to. We want to get rid of the Q. Positive Q becomes negative. Good. So I have 117 minus Q. That's step 1. Isolate a variable. If you isolate a variable, you know the value of that variable. That variable, D, is equal to 117 minus Q. So where you see D in your second equation, I know, right? We can plug in the value of D. We've just figured out the value of D. Yes, it still has a variable in it, but D represents 117 minus Q. So we need to plug that in to our second equation. That's step 2, okay? So we found that the value of D is equal to 117 minus Q. I'm going to replace D with the value of D. So we're going to write 0.25, Q plus 0.10. Instead of writing D, what is the value of D? Equals 15.75. Okay, in our equation, we have only one variable now. I've gotten rid of D. So what do you think you need to do if you have an unknown variable? Step 3, what are we doing? Isolate the variable. Yes, solve for the unknown variable. You want to isolate. In this case, we're isolating Q. We're trying to figure out what is Q equal to. So solve for Q. Okay, we have 0.25 Q plus, now this is what's important, pay attention please. Shh. It's 0.10 times 117 and 0.10 times negative Q. There's a bracket there. We need to remove the bracket. Distributive property. What's 0.10 times 117? 11.7, and then 0.10 times negative Q would be negative 0.10 Q equals 15.75. We can combine 0.25 Q and negative 0.10 Q. They're on the same side, the signs don't change. 0.25 Q minus 0.10 Q equals 15.75. What happens to this plus 11.7? I want to move it to the other side. I want to get rid of it. What's the opposite of plus? Minus. Yes, subtract. 11.7. Simplify. What's 0.25 minus 0.10? Pardon? Good. And what is 15.75 minus 11.7? 4.05. What do I need to do to both sides to isolate Q? Divide by 0.15. What is Q equal to? 27? Okay. We've solved for Q. If you know the number of quarters, can you find the number of dimes?
Yes.
What did the quarters and dimes have to equal? How many coins were there all together? 117. So now we're going to plug in the value of Q. So the last step, plug in your answer into any of the equations, really. I'm choosing this one because it's less steps, into any equation. So we found our answer was Q, was it Q equals 27? Yep. Okay, so 27 plus D equals 117. What's D equal to?
9.
D equals 117 minus 27. D equals 90. So therefore, he has 27 quarters and 90 dimes. You can check your answer. If you have 27 quarters, how much money do you have? What's 27 times 25 cents? How much money does he have in quarters? Somebody? $6.75. He has 90 dimes. How much money does he have in dimes? $9. What's $6.75 plus $9? How much money does he have? $15.75. Did the question say he had a total of $15.75? There you go.